Hello, Joe from Mont Marte here again. You know, in this job, I get to meet so many people that love art. They love doing it at school, but no longer have the time nor the space to do it anymore. If this sounds like you, then I may have a solution to your problem, which leads me to this. This groovy little apparatus in my hand is a Mont Marte box easel, and essentially it's a complete painting kit. In here I have everything that I would need to create beautiful art, and it takes up about as much room as a small briefcase. This is just the type of thing that you could use when painting plein air outdoors, which leads me to this. This beautiful little impressionist painting is the subject of today's lesson. It took about 45 minutes to do, and the techniques are the same as one would use if they were painting outdoors. So let's get started and explore this lovely little easel and talk about the materials we'll be using for this project. At the side of the box easel there is 2 brass clips. When I release them, I can open the drawer. Inside the drawer I pull out my traditional wood palette and brushes. For this project I'll be using a 5-0 Taklon liner, a number 16 Chungking Bright and a number 2 Chungking Filbert. These are my paints, but I'll go more into them a little bit later. To set it up, I just flick the clip at the back and lift up the arms. The angle can be easily adjusted by these brass screws. Now we have been introduced to our art materials, let's talk about the support. Now I'm using a Mont Marte canvas panel that measures 25 by 30, and that's 10 inches by 12 inches in the old imperial measurement. Now I have given it a quick coat of gesso. Now this is optional, but I want my surface to be nice and slippery, and I don't want that weave to be too predominant. I leave that to dry and then place it into the easel. I then slap on a little yellow ochre and a little burnt sienna. So this first step is just to coat the canvas in a dirty orange colour. And what this does is add dimension to the colours when they're laid on top. I'm using acrylic because it provides a nice, tough, flexible base. It doesn't matter if that tint is uneven. Let's get all our colours out. Now we won't be using all of these colours, I don't think, but get into the habit of using the same set of colours, and this palette is the perfect balance. I can create almost any colour. They are phthalo, ultramarine, viridian, lemon yellow, mid yellow, orange red, cadmium red hue, crimson, burnt sienna, burnt umber and titanium white. So let's get some paint on. Now when you're painting outside or plein air, time is very limited and the light's constantly changing, so we need to get that visual information down straight away. Now I painted this quick little painting the other day, and we are going to reproduce that in the style that you would when you're painting plein air, and that is very quick, loose and impressionistic. Now my tree is the main focal point, and it is also the darkest point, so let's block our darks in. To create this dark colour, I take a little ultramarine, and to that I add some crimson and then a little bit of burnt umber. I'm going to apply this with my number 2 Chungking Filbert, which is a hog bristle brush. Dip that into the terps, give it a mix, now create that little landmass. For guidance you can refer to my painting, and that can be found at montmarte.net. In the TV section, just go to the Impressionist Beach Painting and print out the PDF lesson plan. Our Mont Marte webpage is a really great reference for artists, or anyone interested in art really. We're on Facebook too. If you join that, you can send me a picture of your tree. And if you get stuck, I can maybe offer a solution. Or maybe you've discovered a better way and you can tell me how much my tree sucks compared to yours. Well, I think that's the first blocking in done. Now let's lay our sky in. The Australian sky has a slight warmth to it, So, and what that means is, yes, it is blue, but it has a little bit of red in it too. So to create our sky colour,
Tiny bit of crimson.
mixed with some ultramarine and plenty of white. Give that a good mix, and I then lay it in with my number 16 chunking bright. Start down at the waterline and lay it on fairly thickly. Look how lovely that colour looks on top of that orange. I now take my number 2 filbert and drag that blue into the dark tree. Think about every stroke before you do it. Once your 3/4 of the sky is laid in, mix in a spot of phthalo and lay this into the top of the canvas. Now bring this into the existing ultramarine blue. Blend these together so there is a smooth transition. Now I just lay a happy little cloud in here, and then I think another here. Well, now let's move on to the sea. And funnily enough, that's blue too. And we'll create that from ultramarine and white, but with the addition of viridian. Give this mix a good blend, and then add some white. I lay this into the appropriate area and add a little pure white here and there to suggest a bit of sky reflection. I lay a thin blend of white into the skyline. This will suggest some distant waves. And while I have the white, I lay a band in to the left of the tree.
Wow.
Well, I'll leave that there because the impression's there and I don't want to overdo it and lose that painterly feel. Time now for us to create our foliage. And to do this, we won't be using Viridan. Now, Viridan is a very useful colour, but it's too out of this world to create believable greens. And if you can create believable greens, you'll be a much better painter for it. So let's mix up our greens. Onto my palette, I lay a spot of mid-yellow and 2 spots of lemon yellow. I then add some ultramarine to the first mid-yellow, some ultramarine to the second lemon yellow, and finally some phthalo to the third spot of lemon yellow. We now have 3 greens. Give them a mix and let's apply them. I'm applying the darkest colour first and I'm using the number 2 filbert. Now when you apply the paint, remember the underpainting is still a little wet, so you really just have to dab the paint on and push it around. It's very tactile and I love this technique. Then I lay on the second green and then the third. Again, don't overwork these colours as it will all just blend and look flat. Finally, I softly dab on some lemon yellow. This will suggest highlights. Well, I'm going to leave the tree at that. While we still have our greens though, we can put in our reflection. Now, the reflection always shows a little bit duller than the actual image. So, come over here and I'll show you how to create a good reflected colour. Into your sea mix, add a little bit of the number 2 green. Then add some burnt umber and then scrub it into the water. As you do this, bear in mind this colour will blend with the blue of the water. But this is advantageous. Load the brush with less pigment and lay in the area at the bottom of the canvas. To create the complex root system, I use the end of my brush and scrape the dark pigment back to reveal the underpainting. I then create an earthy brown from burnt sienna and white and reinforce a few of the roots to suggest the light hitting them. I lay in a bit in the tree also to suggest dappled light. Then I lay in some aerial roots with the dark tone using the liner. The last step is to add a few spots of the sky colour to suggest holes in the foliage. Well, that's about it, I feel. And again, I must resist the temptation not to fluff, because the more details you put in doesn't necessarily mean it's better. A lot of the times it just takes you further away from your original idea. Well, I really hope you enjoyed that. It's taken no time at all, and I suppose that's what impressionist painting is all about. An artwork that is quick, honest, and unpretentious. So until next time, keep on painting.